if this idea is valid, that Trump himself set out to damage the press and to make the press an enemy and to get the press, is not the press's proper and an appropriate and reasonable response at that point for the press then to therefore get Trump in response, as I think as maybe the thrust of Jamel's argument. Am I?
I mean, the thrust of my argument is that I think the assessment of Trump as being sort of a kind of, at best, uncertain force, at worst, quite dangerous force in American democracy, justifies a somewhat more antagonistic response than you might see against a different politician.
Including the part that he's out to get the press.
Right, right.
Okay.
Well, I would say one thing. It's very difficult to cover a president who lies this much. And I don't mean political lies. Obviously, there's just facts that aren't so. And he says it again and again, either because he doesn't read and he doesn't know things, or because he convinces himself, or because he can. He lies a lot. And I will acknowledge that the press is a little offended by this. They've never had presidents who lied to their faces like this, with the exception perhaps of Richard Nixon, but he didn't do it as much. So I think in that regard...
There was, I did not have sex with that woman.
Yes, but I don't think
That's the other political side, though, so you shouldn't mention that.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, it's careful.
But I do think that the press understandably feels that there is a fact-checking role to be had. And by the way, I don't think, talking to my colleagues at the Post, at least, they're under any misbelief that they're going to influence people necessarily. That's just their job. That's what they do. And so they are going to fact-check them, and they are going to investigate the Russians, and they are going to investigate conflicts of interest. There's a lot of stuff that's never happened before in the White House.
No one opposes fact-checking, but look, there's a love and hate relationship on both sides. The press fears and loathes him, but he's great for ratings, and everyone's subscriptions are going up. Trump hates the New York Times. He says it's failing, it's losers, but as Jen refers to, he calls Maggie Haberman whenever he wants to get something on the front page, and no one cares. No one has ever cared as much about what is written about him and said on TV than Donald Trump does. But I think the play for the press here, going to the numbers Chris cited about his credibility being low, when you're being attacked this vociferously and viciously by a very powerful person for being biased and unfair, you shouldn't react in kind. You actually should take a step back and be more fair-minded and more professional, and that they clearly haven't been able to do. And just a key part of Jen's argument is almost a scholastic argument that we don't know what the press is. We can't define it. You know, and National Review and the New York Times taken together have 5 million subscribers. Well, that might be true, but we are a very small slice of that 5 million, and people still look at the broadcast, the 3 big broadcast networks, and there are a couple few big newspapers that define the tone of the press coverage in this country, and they are clearly hostile to President Trump.
So, I mean, I think that Brexit, Le Pen, Mélenchon, Trump, Sanders, these are protest votes. And fundamentally, they're protests against established political parties, against public intellectuals, against mainstream media, against elites, against science, against research. And I mean, in that regard, Trump deciding that he is going to take on in theatric and reality television TV form, the mainstream media in the U.S. is an extremely smart thing for him to do, and something he'll be able to continue to ride for quite some time, notwithstanding all the facts that he wants to make sure that he can continue to have influence over his favorite ones, that he can dole out, you know, to the court gesture that's most appealing to him at any given time. But I also think we have been talking about only one part of the media. We haven't talked much about the media he likes the most, which is social media, because he can control it, he can get the information out directly. Now, social media is owned by Silicon Valley. And that social media, which they weren't paying attention. Mark Zuckerberg, no fake news, not a big deal until after the election. Oh my God, we've got a fake news problem. You know, Eric Schmidt, Google, don't know what to do about the algorithms. Then suddenly, wait a second, we're going to deal with these artificial bots that are causing difficulty. I suspect that we are going to see a very big structural fight between Silicon Valley, social media, Bezos, and maybe a little Washington Post too, against the White House. It's going to get larger going forward, not smaller, and that's one where the media needs to really watch out.